Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this video right here is about Trump's decision to pull out of the Iranian deal. And basically the Iranian deal provided for restrictions on Iran's nuclear program. It involved monitoring of Iran's nuclear program to ensure that they would not acquire nuclear weapons. And in exchange for the Iranians agreeing to this monitoring or this limitation on their nuclear program, certain countries would lift some of the sanctions against Iran. Now Donald Trump has pulled out of the deal, and I just want to talk about the implications of this and just share my thoughts about this whole situation and this decision to pull out of this agreement. First of all, I think it's a disastrous decision. And I think that all it's going to do, as many people have reported on, is create more instability in the Middle East. Now, for now, the Iranians are saying that they're going to still abide by the agreement. It's an international agreement, so they're going to uphold their duties and responsibilities. But one thing that's been talked about is the possibility of hardliners seizing power in Iran away from, the current leadership, because, Donald Trump thumbing his nose at the Iranians, that's just going to encourage the hardliners in that country, and it's going to inspire people to support the hardliners. And the hardliners may completely pull out of the situation, pull out of the agreement, despite the fact that you have these other countries that are still going to try to work on maintaining this agreement. So if you have a situation where hardliners decide to pull out, that creates great instability in the Middle East. That could potentially create an arms race in the Middle East. And as we know, the Middle East is a volatile region of the world. There have been many wars in the Middle East. There are wars going on right now, civil wars going on. And this just adds more potential for violence. It's like throwing fuel on a fire. It will not accomplish anything but more death, more destruction, and more war. That's what we're looking at. And it's no coincidence that the Israelis were rallying behind Donald Trump ending this deal. The Israelis are nothing but a force of war in the world. They are nothing but a force of violence in the world. They are a force of instability in the world. They are a threat to the world. Their track record of violating human rights speaks for itself. You can't trust anything that comes from the Israelis in terms of this intelligence and this presentation that Benjamin Netanyahu presented to the world to try to justify pulling out of this agreement. It reminded me of when Colin Powell went before the UN and presented all this fake evidence of Iraq having weapons of mass destruction. And we know how that story turned out. And that's what I think about this Netanyahu and the Israeli government. The Israelis are a force of oppression in the world. They are a force of occupation in the world, a force of settling and colonialism in the world. And they just need to be called out. And there are reports about how Israeli intelligence firms tried to dig up dirt on the Obama officials who were involved in the Iranian deal in order to delegitimize it or to discredit that whole negotiation process. So the Israelis have an interest in this situation. And it's unfortunate that you have a Trump administration that is a puppet to the Israelis. They are, the Trump administration is completely controlled and influenced by these Israelis, by the Zionists, more so than past presidents. And it's just a disgrace, man. It's a disgrace that we have the United States being a puppet of a state that is essentially a welfare state. The state of Israel would not exist if it was not for all the billions of dollars that the United States gives to that country. But yet that country wields so much influence over the United States in the political process. Both parties are dominated by these Zionists. They have this organization, AIPAC, that has so much power and influence in Washington, and that's beyond dispute. Both parties bowed down before these Zionists. And Donald Trump is one of the worst examples of somebody submitting to the Zionists. So that's one thing. And then you have this issue of Russia. This issue of Russia trying to create a wedge between the United States and NATO. And the fact that you have Donald Trump pulling out of this agreement against the advice of America's allies, Western allies, its NATO allies, this confirms, a lot of what people have been speculating on about the influence of the Russians over this Trump administration. There's already an investigation going on about collusion between the Trump administration and the Russians. Several people have been indicted that are affiliated with the Trump campaign and administration. That speaks for itself. And I do believe, there's no question in my mind that the Russians have some influence over this man, Donald Trump. Donald Trump has nothing but praise for Putin for the most part. Nothing but praise for the leader of Russia. When he speaks out on all these other people, condemns all these other kinds of people, but he has nothing but praise for an enemy of the United States. And he is playing into the hands of Putin. He's playing into the hands of the Russians. They want to see a divide between the U.S. and NATO. And we've seen this before, like when Donald Trump had some meeting with the G8 or something like that. He was very disrespectful to American allies. And I think that that's by design. I think at the end of the day, Donald Trump is nothing but a Manchurian candidate. And this whole fiasco with him pulling out of this agreement is just another example of him working for Russia, doing Russia's work for them, trying to undermine the alliance between the U.S. and these other Western powers. So I think that this is a disaster, man, and I think it's a bad sign. And I really think that Donald Trump is a threat to national security. I think that he doesn't know what he's doing. I think that he's obviously inexperienced and he's unfit to be president of the United States. And I hope that, this election during the midterms, I hope that the American people vote out a lot of those Republicans who have been silent, these Republicans who have supported this man and his shenanigans and his disrespect of the office. I hope that a lot of them are voted out of power. And I hope that eventually that there are impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump. That's what I hope. I'm in the process of reading Fire and Fury, and some of these things about, possible collusion with the Russians are discussed in that book. And I may do a review of that book at a later point. But that book raises a lot of questions, man. It raises a lot of questions about the fitness of this man to serve as president of the United States. And this is just another reminder of how unfit this man is to serve as president. He is jeopardizing the American people. He is jeopardizing American national interests by pulling out of this agreement. And President Obama recently spoke out about how this is a bad idea. He talked about how, Donald Trump is making a mistake. And I'll post links to the articles when I get a chance. Article, dealing with Obama's statement, an article dealing with these Israeli intelligence firms trying to pull up dirt on the Obama officials, information about Donald Trump pulling out of this agreement. So you all look in the description box and read those articles for yourself so that you can get more thorough information about this situation. This is very important, and I hope that more people pay attention to this issue.